Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the English news from Djibouti channels. Here are the title of our edition news tonight. The headlines are National News. The Minister of National Education held a meeting with the head of regional institutions. On continental news, Washington queries the hashtag with Canada and Mexico. Welcome if you join us. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, paid a heartfelt tribute to the memory of the late Abdul Qadir Hamad, the Sultan of Tajora, who died yesterday in France, where he was on medical stay. In the posthumous tribute, the President of the Republic described the late Djiboutian notable as an inveterate patriot who has always worked for the peace and unity of his people and his country. It will remain engraved in the memory of the Djiboutian for its greatness of heart and its unquelled prosperity to assert all the time the brotherhood and the solidarity within our nation. Declare in substance the President who prayed God Almighty to welcome the deceased customary leader into his eternal paradise. Born on May 25, 1937 in Tajura, the late Abdul Qadir Hamad was an affable, welcoming, friendly man without interruptions. He had been acting as Sultan of Tajura and the Debnag Waima community since 1985. He also had a career in the higher administrations. Heavy rain fell in the south of the country, especially in the region of the unit. According to the information we received, these heavy rain have fallen on Dikhl city and its peripheries, including Mulud, Sabr, and Gurabus. No damage have been lamented yet. The prefect of Dikhl asked the driver of trucks and light vehicle to double vigilance and to not venture into the beds of the floods. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mr. Mustafa Mohammed Mahmoud, presided over this weekend a meeting of feedback assessment of the heads of institutions of the region. All the school heads of the region and senior executive of the main FOB took part in the important meeting, which was the culminations of an evaluations campaign that ran through two long weeks school across the country. The Minister of National Education first stressed the importance of its exercise, which should ensure a supply of teaching and learning quality. He emphasized particularly offensive speech on the systematic and periodic evaluation to ensure optimal functioning for all schools in the country. In a statement, the Minister of Labor and Work says the sense of responsibility, particular with the head of the most affluent school. He called for improvement of the new Minister of Health, Mr. Mohammed Warsa Madiri, received in his cabinet the accredited ambassador of Cuba in Djibouti, Mr. Lazaro. The ambassador was accompanied by Julio Guerra, in charge of the contingent of Cuban doctors practicing in the country. Attended this meeting the acting Secretary General Dr. Salah Benoit Turab, as well as senior official attend the meeting. The minister and his host discussed the acts of the state of existing health corporations between Djibouti and Cuba. During the meeting, Minister of Health highlighted the importance of the Djibouti-Cuban partnership in improving the national health system. The Minister of Labor made a declaration of contact with the different departments of its ministry, and the meeting of these staff different. The Minister of Labor is responsible for implementing government policy in the area of labor, employment, professional integration, social relation, as well as management of state agents and social protections. It prepares and implements the rule relating to working conditions, collective agreement, and employee rights. It prepares and implements the reform of the administration, the rule relating to the segments and the management for social security organizations. He also has authority over the employment observatory. The Hassan Guled Stadium hosted a key carrying ceremony for a mini bus for the benefit of the Djiboutian athletics federations, as well as the receptions of 2 gold medal winning athletes at the cross-country youth championship of Ivory Coast Junior Africa. Are Abdulrazak Hassan gold medal African championship in Ivory Coast, and Il Hassan the gold medal Arab champion, the Secretary of State for Youth and Sport, and the Colonel of the Coast Guard have welcomed the remarkable result of to our young athletes, especially to the young Abdulrazak, who in addition to the gold medal has privileged the time by realizing a new African record in the category with a time of 48:43. As part of the charity activities of the placements of Ramadan, the Kuwaiti Embassy in Djibouti distributed on Wednesday and Thursday about 700 food baskets to the poorest families in the region of Arta and Marsaki locality of the Jora region. In this regard, the ambassador of Kuwait to Djibouti, Yusuf Hussein Al-Kabandi, visited the city of Arta to oversee the distribution of integrated food baskets containing sacks of rice, sugar, and flour, as well as date oil and other preserves needed by the Ramadan family. The Department of Livestock and Veterinary Services, in close collaboration with the Minister of Agriculture, Water, Fisheries and Animal Husbandry in charge of fishery resources, in close collaboration with the FAO, as part of its program, SURF and Chinese corporation carry out a survey missions of animal brucellosis to Tajura. And continental news, the legislative vote on Saturday in particular opened while the end of the campaign was mourned by the death of former Prime Minister Bob Wiki, legend of the Labour Party. Elections in Australia, where voting is mandatory, are traditionally very tight. The ballot in one turn is preferentially alternative. That is, the voter can name multiple candidates on their ballot in order of preference. Here we arrive at the end of this news edition. Thank you and goodbye.